Ladies and gentlemen, we are now all set to start the first panel discussion of the day. The subject being, going beyond the general counsel role, what and how to become active and equal player as the core of the management of organizations. Approaching business with long-term strategy and vision, GC Speak. The moderator of this session will be Ms. Pooja Mehtani, General Counsel, Sun Life Asia Service Centers and Company Secretary, Asia Service Center, India. Let's warmly welcome her. Warm welcome. Our next panelist would be Ms. Nandita Gera, Director, Legal, Risk Management and Compliance, DB Schenker and Indian Subcontinent. Let's warmly welcome Ms. Nandita Gera. Our next panelist being Mr. Vineet, Group General Counsel, Tech Mahindra. Mr. Rajiv Choubey, Group General Counsel, Dalmia, Bharat. Warm welcome to all our panelists. Our next panelist being Mr. Nitin Mittal, General Counsel, India Pacific Region, Signify, and also Legal Head for SNS Projects for the Regional Advisor to Global Signify Foundation. And our final panelist would be Ms. Shalini Saxena, Head of Legal, CoinDCX. A warm round of applause for all our panelists, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Ruchi, for the warm introduction. I welcome my panelists and welcome you all to this conference today. We are starting with a very relevant topic, and I would like to thank Mr. Basin and Mr. Anand for their very great insights to start the conference today. I've taken some notes from them and I changed my notes while I was hearing what they were saying and such wonderful insights. The topic is very engaging, and we all know that the role of the General Counsel has really evolved. How it has evolved, we all know pretty much, and what the changes are. But I would just like to sum up with 4 or 5 things. I think the business models are changing. We all know that. The changes to the business models and to the organizations will be definitely transformational. The regulatory environment has to keep pace with the changes in business. Will it keep pace or not? We'll all see. But the changes will definitely have to be there in the regulatory regime as well. The mindsets will have to rapidly change and adapt to keep pace with the changes in business and the transformation that we are all witnessing. There will be incidents like the pandemic that we've seen. There will be a lot of risk management, crisis management. Another great point is that we'll have to bring in diversity. Diversity at the organizations, diversity of thought in how we manage the legal teams, how we deliver to the business. And the traditional models of managing egos, managing people will not work. We'll definitely have to adapt. There has to be a lot of endurance in how the GCs operate and support business. These are some of the notes that I took, and while we see that GCs have to be an equal player with the core management teams, have representations at the board or they guide the board, but how do we get there? We are all working day in and day out, and we, through the pandemic, we've seen that there was rapid evolution of how we deal with our work and how we support businesses. We wouldn't have even thought about the roles that we took during the pandemic and changed, rapidly adapted to support businesses, and we were at the heart of strategic decision making. So I would like to, start the panel discussion, and Mr. Choubey, this question, is for you, that with the changing laws and regulatory compliances becoming very complex, how do you think that the general counsels will maintain a balance of wearing both their business hat and a legal hat, and while doing that, how will they create an influence and thought leadership so that they ensure their relevance today and continuous growth in the future as well?
Thank you, Nandita. Pooja. Good morning, everybody, and it is really glad to be here after a long duration. Responding to your question, I represent an industry which is brick and mortar, where I think a lot of things depend upon, especially regulatory, in terms of if you want to manufacture cement, you need limestone. And so I think we are such an industry where there's a lot of regulatory intervention, where right from mining to so many consent, approval, and God forbid if your mining is under forest, then it further gets complicated. So I think everybody wants to grow, and so does the current group with which I am working. But I think as a general counsel, it is very important that you give the correct advice, because sometimes there are various people the business people always are very eager to sometimes take shortcuts as part of the growth story. While you may take a shortcut, ultimately, I'll just give you one example. There have been few instances where people have started constructing a greenfield project without having a proper environment clearance. And today in the RTI world, where everything is, and also in the age where ministry uploads every information of clearance and approval, there are some good friends who are watching, and there are NGOs and there are public spirited citizens. So if any PIL is filed, your entire project goes for a toss. Then you end up into litigation, and then it becomes very difficult. So I think while we are business enablers, while we should advise and guide the business in terms of resolving issues, but I think it's very important to give the correct advice. And I always say that do it right first time and every time. It may take a little longer, but ultimately you will see, light at the end of the tunnel. Otherwise, if you are stuck, then you are stuck. And there are endless projects in my own experience and even otherwise where projects have got stuck, and even like if I take my previous company, Vedanta, they invested 40,000 crore in Orissa, put up a 2 million ton aluminium refinery on the assurance that they will get bauxite. The company today is still facing problem because of lack of bauxite. Because if you don't have bauxite, you cannot manufacture aluminium. And you have put a alumina plant in a landlocked place like Lanchigad, which is in Kalahandi district. So importing bauxite and alumina and bringing, the entire dynamics of the business has changed because you did not get the mines. So I think it's very important as General Counsel to give the right advice and do not take any shortcuts. That's very important. I will stop here and then can.
So you're also saying that you have to be very close to business also.
Absolutely.
To kind of assess, and I think that's a very important point, that you have to be very close to business, and you cannot be just reactive but very proactive.
Yeah.
To be able to understand the different projects. Absolutely. And then guide the business accordingly.
Absolutely. And that's why you see now more and more General Counsel being part of the executive committee. Because, if they are not part of the executive committee, then general approach has been that when the issue gets stuck, you give it to legal. Then you become like a surgeon who has to do the surgery. Rather than, you be the doctor who is always there taking care in terms of the right advice, be involved with the business. Not only that, you have to keep abreast with the latest, judgments of the Supreme Court or regulatory changes which is taking place, and give that correct perspective. Because I have seen in my experience, sales guy is always willing to do the sales, whether he gets the money or not. So it's like, you know, I go to the kitchen to help my wife and I cook something and create more mess. She tells, "Bhai, rehne do tum," you know. So not only it is important to do business, it is important to do a clean business where you don't leave legacies and problems. I think that's very important. And that's where I think general counsel role comes in, where he can balance, you know, in terms of taking the right decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Choubey. Vineet, as Mr. Choubey said, that you have to be integrated with business and you have to be an active player of the core management group. The responsibilities are vast, right? And how do you think that to create that kind of an influence and to be, for the business to come to you also in time and integrate you with the, when you're to be at the heart of business, how do you think that you can create that influence? How do you think that you can be then with the business and create that kind of a culture?
No, so I think, I am heading the legal function for Signify, and Signify is the world leader in lighting, of course, present in more than 70 countries. Now, legal function in Signify is given a large importance in all business decisions, right? And I am, of course, part of the leadership team. Now, being part of the leadership team does not only mean that you bring a legal perspective to all decisions, but also a business perspective, right? Now, whether it is a new product introduction, whether it is expansion in organic growth, I think in all areas, General Counsel needs to bring a different perspective, not only legal. Now, from a skill set perspective, I think also it's important that General Counsel expands his or her skill set into different areas, whether it is people management, whether it is leadership, whether it is management practices, whether it is conflict management, for example. For example, Mr. Anand mentioned managing egos, right? That is also part of conflict management. Or for that matter, mentoring and coaching people. I think that is one aspect which is very important from a general counsel role. Because as also Mr. Anand said, I think we need to develop the next level of leaders. So general counsel has to also play that role, very, very important, has to devote a large amount of time in that role. So that is very key, because you are in a very senior position, you are in a position to grow the next talent within the organization. So that is very important that the general counsel should do. Also, I think one needs to be very connected to the business, as Rajiv mentioned. I think having the pulse of the business is very important, because if you don't have the pulse of the business, you will not have the ear of the CEO or the board. So that is very important. And one of the biggest fallacies sometimes I see legal people not understanding the business. One needs to be absolutely ingrained into the business operations. You have to connect with the masses. A lot of people stay aloof, right? General counsels, we are different, we are only counselors. No, I think you need to connect with the masses. Everybody in the organization should know you. And they should be free to speak to you. There should be safety in speaking to you, coming to legal. Because more people come to you, the more valuable you are to the organization. So I think that is the next stage for us to be. Also, I think the skill set of, a lot of lawyers are learning coding now. A lot of lawyers are learning how to use artificial intelligence, how to use data. And I see a course by NLS also on coding, which Bhavin is introducing. I think he's one of the professors there. And that is very important for lawyers to expand your horizons in digital areas, because unless you do that, you will be far behind in the conventional thinking. So you have to move ahead in the progressive thinking in digital, and there you need to expand into digital areas.
Thanks, Nitin. Coming to Mr. Vij, Mr. Choubey and Nitin have already elaborated that you have to be in sync with business. How do GCs create that trust so that business also does not see them in the traditional light, not as just a reactive partner with them, but a strong embedded business partner so that they come to you, well in time for your advice, and that your advice is valued?
Thank you, Pooja. I think there are a couple of things here. I think the first thing is all about, the trust that or the relationship you develop with the business. So I think at the first place, as Rajiv and Nitin just mentioned, you need to understand the business. So I think that's the foundation for trust. So firstly, you need to understand business, and I can kind of say my experience has been largely in the IT space. But I'm talking of maybe early 2000 at TCS, when we actually created war room for every project that the company would bid. We would sit down with business, finance, delivery, etc., and debate the structuring of the deal. So the structuring of the deal was not just about commercial structuring, but it also dealt with the technology, the architecture, and so on. So I think as lawyers, and I'm talking about 20 years ago, at that point in time, we would sit across the table and understand as to how the IT structure would be drawn up, and therefore think about what could be the legal implications, legal requirements, and so on and so forth. So I think as you get into the room with these people, have a conversation with them, and also not tell them that, here is this section so and so of the act which does not work, or if there is this section so and so of the Copyright or the Trademark Act, and therefore you can't apply for a trademark, and so on and so forth. So once you get that and you get over with that, is the time that you build that confidence, trust with the business. So I think it all starts from there, and then you move on to, I would say, creating the right kind of team. Have the right mindset of lawyers as a part of your team, who are kind of commercial lawyers who think business. And Nitin just mentioned about coding, so I think that's important. Technology is one part, and we'll touch upon that at a separate stage. But I think you have to be progressive, you have to be working in tandem with business. And lastly, I think there is one last aspect about trust with the management. I think that also is very important. The panelist just mentioned about being a board member, playing different roles as compliance heads, and maybe at different levels. So I think you need to have that confidence done, which will not emerge on day one. Of course, you join as GC or you elevate as a GC, of course, there is a trust already. But I think you need to develop it further. You need to offer the right, the right kind of advice. And I can't speak much on that, but I remember an event at, again, the Tatas. There was a decision to be taken about whether to report an incident to the CVC or not. And as lawyer, as a senior counsel at that point in time, my advice was that, irrespective of whatever outcome, I think it's important to take a stance and maybe give that right advice. The company followed, and it did well. Eventually, from a legal ramifications perspective. So I think it's a combination of a couple of factors.
Very well said, Vineet, that I think you can't just be prescriptive all the time. You have to come up, understand the business, be very solution oriented, and that is how you will create an environment of influence where you will be in tandem with the business and the board. Nandita, coming to you, you manage along with risk a lot of compliance issues as well, and can you just let us know that how have you managed risk and compliance and thereby created value? Because no business can be successful without proper risk management.
Thank you, Pooja, for this question. I think it's a very relevant question in today's time, when the role of general counsels have actually extended to also understanding business very well and advising businesses at the initial stage itself. So I would like to start by saying that in today's time, risk mitigation is not entirely possible. So therefore, risk management becomes very important. General counsels need to understand how to manage the risk. Also, we are not always required to advise the business at the time of crisis. We are required to preempt the risk, and therefore it becomes very important that at the general counsel level,
you have a seat on the table, you are a part of the management decisions, and you're close to the business, you have the right business acumen and understanding to advise the business of any risk at the right stage and at the right time. So I think that has been emphasized by the other panelists also very well. The other thing which I would like to mention is that we need to use appropriate risk management tools, whether be it insurances, appropriate insurances for the organization, for the business, appropriate legal workshops on compliance need to be given to business managers so that they can understand what are the exposures that the business has and can be compliant and be cognizant about the risks that are there. Apart from that, it's also very important that there is a strong and an open, transparent relationship with the regulators. So as general counsels, we are in touch with the regulators, mostly Mr. Which emphasized that. We are in touch with the regulators. We need to ensure that there is an open and transparent relationship so that we can take the right guidance and we can get our queries addressed at the right time to avoid any huge penalties, or any punitive measures that are taken against the organization. The last thing that I would like to mention is that we need to understand the importance of technology and digitization today. I think there was Mr. Anand mentioned about predictive analysis, various tools that can be used today. So I would like to emphasize that we, as general counsels, we need to adapt ourselves to these tools where there could be a predictive analysis of what kind of risk, what kind of claims, what kind of litigation our organizations are facing. And when we study the reports, we can advise the business and operations on where the improvements can be made. And this can hugely prevent any recurring issues, any legal issues that we are facing on a regular basis. And in the logistics industry, in my organization, we have a customer claims tool where we are able to understand which are the areas we are having customer claims on a regular basis, and we advise business regularly on that. So these are a few things I think which are important.
Thanks, Nandita. I have very valid points. Adopting technology and harnessing it along with the compliance and risk management is definitely a large part of what GCs have to do. Otherwise, without proper risk management, any business can be risky. Nitin, yeah.
Just to build on Nandita's point, I think sometimes a lot of people outside the law or in the business see law as only managing risk, not legal professionals, but what we also need to show is that we also seize opportunities. So sometimes law also can be used also to seize opportunities in areas where, for example, there are new laws coming in, where business can expand. For example, the PLI scheme which came up last few years, a lot of companies have done. So one area is seizing opportunities. I think that is very important for general counsels too, and that can only be done when you are ingrained in the business, to my earlier point.
Right.
And when you know what is happening in the business in different factories or divisions or functions or innovations. So that is
very proactive rather than just
I think we need to also step opportunity seizing or something.
That's good.
It's not just about legal risks alone. I think as organizations and as business enablers, there is also, operation compliances. Not just to add what you just said, Nandita. Apart from legal compliances, there are operational compliances that you need to adhere to. So as an organization, you've undertaken under contracts with your customers, partners, etc. on 10,000 things that you need to, undertake and so on. So as legal, you can't just take a back seat and kind of say, this is non-legal. So I think as business partners, you need to look at that and advise and support on that aspects as well. So, just to kind of supplement.
If I may just add, one very important aspect is with respect to policy. So whatever industry you are working, I think the policy landscape is changing very, very fast. And as GCs, not only we should be watchful of what is the new policy which is coming, there may be some policy which is not working for the business. So it's very important to take those policies with the chambers of commerce or with there are other industry association and represent it before either Niti Aayog or different ministries to get those bottlenecks removed for the business. I think that is one aspect which is very important as part of the strategy where GCs can work because they understand the legality and the regulatory aspects very well. So that's very important, which I believe.
Very valid point, Rajiv. Yeah. Thank you. Moving on to you, Shalini. Can you just throw some light on, how technological advancements are impacting businesses? How GCs can leverage technology for their own departments and also support the organizations in their transformation journey, in this world of digitization and adoption of technology. What roles do GCs and their teams play?
Thanks, Pooja. I think I've been very lucky for being part of companies, including now where I'm heading the legal function for a crypto company. I have moved with technology. And I heard everyone on the panel say some great points. And the fact that you are all here, we are all here, is because we know our subject really well. But how are you becoming partners with business? And I'm going to break this up into two. There are two kinds of lawyers I see. One, that are the more conventional ones that are struggling with technology. If you tell them that I'm going to move from an email to a Slack, they're like, oh God, what the hell happened? I mean, why should I use Slack? They will never exchange notes on WhatsApp. And this is when the law has declared WhatsApp to be a fairly legit form of, sending out notices. So there is a mindset that you will have to change when it comes to absorbing or becoming enablers to technology. You will, as counsels, find those little pockets that are capable of being automated for you. I think most of us stop thinking, saying, okay, contract management tool dal dete ho gaya automation. I don't think that's how it works. Life is more about automation than we are giving or thinking about it. I think Mr. Anand made a great point when he said predictive analysis. I think litigating lawyers are doing predictive analysis. You go take a matter to a senior, he'll say, is judge ke aage mat lagana, chances are you won't get relief. That is predictive analysis. So you are doing something, it's just about how are you automating it. Billing is today completely automated, so should research be. It's going to be breaking a barrier in our heads. Lawyers are conservative, lawyers are traditional, lawyers are extremely subject matter savvy, very, how do I say it? We're very absolute in how we think on a lot of things. And I think that is the only barrier we cross. We want to find million things. And to just take examples, within my own team, we work on automation every day. I don't think I work on emails anymore. I work on anything but emails. But how do I keep data secure despite moving different forms of communication is something that we automate and we keep a tab on. We automate our EA services completely. We have a portal where we just put file stuff that need to be printed and just automatically prints and sends it, tells a keeper to pick it up and drop it at the relevant desk. So we are fairly automated. There's zillion things you can automate to make your life simple. It's like how your mother moved from a mixie to a full-fledged food processor. It's just something as simple as that.
Thank you. Mr. Vish, will you be able to add on, with your experience in the tech industry, that how do you support business in their digital transformation journeys?
So I think at the first place, I think all of us agree, and I think all of us here in the room agree that, those traditional days are gone. We were, as legal function also, and as lawyers and counsels, we've already adopted technology. In the legal space, it's already, be it about contract management, contracting itself, be it litigation management. So all of those areas are already automated to my mind. So that's one about the legal function. Two is about, how do you kind of work together with businesses, etc. So, as Shalini, you just mentioned about, technology taking the lead and all of those functions already getting automated. So what is happening? So cryptos and blockchains and, NFTs and all of that, this is really happening. You have our companies and most of the companies now getting into animation, gaming, all sorts of companies getting created. So I think as lawyers, you can't be ignorant of technology as such, you know, and you just mentioned about lawyers learning coding and all of that stuff. So I think you upgrade yourself, and I think you may not upgrade so much about, you do need to though, about laws and so on and so forth, but I think you need to do this on the technology side also. Partner with your technology teams, internal and external, and, you know, automate the department and sit with them, because, you know, the contracts that are getting written now, you know, have so much of technology clauses and provisions, etc., be it about data protection and I mean any area. So I think we got to upgrade and upskill, and that's where we are. And you know, so it's all about partnering, learning technology, learning coding, and all of that stuff. So there's a lot of tasks on hand for us.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Vij. We've all talked about you know, being adaptable, and are you all ready for some fun? Will you be game if I have some rapid fire questions for you?
Sure.
So, okay, so I'll start with you, Shalini, and I have 5 or 6. Choose what you want to answer and leave the rest so that we can, you know, some fun for the audience as well. You can have the mic.
Thank you.
Can you sum up your role as a GC, quoting a few liners from your favorite poem, or maybe related to a title of a movie?
There's a lovely Chinese proverb by Tao Jing, I may have got that wrong, which says that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. That's how I sum up my career.
Sure. One mistake that can ruin an in-house counsel's career?
Ego.
And if you look back at your journey as a GC, would you want to switch gears with any other profession?
I want to be a dancer.
Great, I'll partner with you then. One book that you would recommend all the colleagues present here to read, all your fellow legal colleagues?
It's also because I'm an ex-G and G stays very close to my heart, but there's a book that Jack Welch wrote which just says winning. I think everybody, not just lawyers, should read that book. When I left that book, it just opened up or clarified a lot of stuff. To any profession, read that book.
Sure. And one competency that you think is non-negotiable in a GC?
The common answer is integrity, but I'm going to deviate a bit saying, you know what, just be true to the code. In today's life, there is no black and white, but there is one truth that you cannot compromise with. Let that be constant, and everything is debatable.
Sure. Thanks, Shalini. Moving on to you, Nandita. Sum up your role as a GC, quoting favorite line from a poem or from a book or quote or a movie title.
Well, I am not very poetic as a person, but I would just say that, you know, as a GC, we are much beyond being lawyers. Yeah.
Okay. One mistake that you think can ruin an in-house counsel's career?
By you know, having that conventional thinking that you don't need to understand business and you can just be those lawyers who are advising on legal issues.
And if you have to switch gears with any other profession, what will it be?
I wouldn't do that. I think I'm pretty happy and content, and I could repeat this, you know, if I got a second chance. So I'm pretty happy with my choice. Yeah.
And one book that you would recommend, or a movie?
Yeah. So I would recommend 2 books. One is Trusted Advisor by David Maestro, and then there is a book by the name of Atomic Habits by James Clear. I think that's a wonderful book, and not limited to lawyers again, but something that really disciplines you and improves your way of working.
And one competency in the GC that's non-negotiable?
Yeah, so I think very important to have a business acumen. I think we can't compromise on that.
Thanks, Nandita. Mr. Vij, coming to you. Can you sum up your career? Quoting few lines of a poem, maybe some shairi,
Is pass an option?
No.
Can do a Hindi movie song.
Sure.
I can't sing it, so.
Sure, that'll be great.
You know.
It'll be happening first time on a panel, I think.
Is it? Mera Naam Joker. ए भाई देख के चलो, आगे ही नहीं, पीछे भी, दाएं ही नहीं, बाएं भी, and ऊपर भी नहीं, नीचे भी. So you know, the path we treat, you kind of need to be, you know, careful of what you are doing. So you have the management on one side, you have the stakeholders on the other side, and I'm now walking on fire. So.
Great. One mistake that can ruin a GC's or an in-house counsel's career?
I think integrity. To me, I think integrity. That's important. So be honest, be upfront, be transparent. I think that works well. So there's no compromise.
Would you want to switch gears with another profession?
No, not really. Maybe I would say happy of what I'm doing. Maybe you could add passions. You know, you can have. We all have some passions, some additional things that we want to do. So sports, adventure, etc. could be those options. But I'm happy doing what I'm doing at this point in time.
One book that you would want to recommend?
I think the book name is Future Lawyers. Richard. It's a great book, but I think I don't need to add anything because Mr. Praveen Anand just talked about it. Because it's a book written about in 2020 about what lawyers will be or ought to be in 20 to 30 years from now, and its emphasis is technology. And I think Mr. Anand and its slides were like, what do I say? He's talked all about it.
Exactly.
So you don't need to read that book. Maybe you go through the Mr. Anand slides. That's a summary of all of it.
And one competency that you think is non-negotiable in a GC?
I mentioned, I think, integrity and so on, but I think also teamwork. Teamwork. And maybe just to add, I think it's all about teamwork. Egos aside, again, collaboration and what Mr. Anand said the context. So thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, Rajiv, you would know the questions also by now. So
yeah, I think the first is a poem. So again, I no poem comes to my mind, but there is something which is very common in the Indian context is Hanuman Chalisa, and basically he's called Sankat Mochan. You know, so I can. I think many of us may be Hanuman Bhakt. So it says Jai Hanuman Gyan Gun Sagar, Jai Kappi Sithu Lok Ujagar, Ramadut Atulid Banjana, Anjani Putra Pavan Sutnama. So it's a long poem, or words you can say. So basically in English, if it says, he is somebody who has all the strength, right? And he is somebody who has all the good sense and wisdom, and he can dispel the darkness and the evil thoughts. So as a general counsel in the company, I think we are, sometimes we have to act as the gatekeepers, especially in terms of ethics, governance, and also giving the right advice. And there is another line in the verse, Bhoot Pichas Nikata Nahi Aave. So that basically says that if there is evil around, if you have a lawyer, if you have a right advisor, all those evils, you can be away from that. So I think I draw a lot of corollary from, Hanuman Chalisa and being Hanuman Bhakt.
Sure. One book that you would like to recommend?
I will take the liberty of two books. One is The Difficulty of Being Good by Guru Charan Das, which has a lot of examples from the Bhagavad Gita. I think it's a general book which actually tells how we'll handle conflict and all those things. The second book is, I'm a big fan of late Nani Palkiwala, and I think our fundamental rights are preserved and the basic structure is because of his argument in Keshavanand Bharati. So that book is called The Courtroom Genius. I think any lawyer should read to feel motivated, and how, there are a lot of examples.
Sure. And one competency according to you which is non-negotiable in a GC?
I think I just noted down because there are, so one is not compromising on integrity.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you, Rajiv. Moving on to you, Nitin. Do you start with, do you also have a song or a poem?
So it's an old song. I twisted it from a GC perspective. So it basically starts with जब कोई बात बिगड़ जाए, जब कोई मुश्किल छा जाए, तुम देना साथ मेरे, ओ मेरे GC. So it's like So we are actually always there whenever there are difficult times, difficult situations. So Sankat Mochan, as Rajiv of course is a better analogy. So that is the one. On the book side, I recently read a book called Team of Rivals by Doris Kearns Goodwin. So it's a very nice book because it is based on the story of President Lincoln in the Civil War and how he formed a cabinet of rivals, the people who actually were contesting him when he was elected president in 1861 or so. So it teaches you a lot about handling conflicts, handling disagreements, having an empathetic leadership. So it's a very great book. So maybe if you have time, you can read it. Apart from, of course, there are other books which.
Would you want to switch your career for any other?
No, I think I love the law profession. I think there is much you can do and much you can achieve. I would not have a second chance to change it.
Yes, you missed that. Yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Choubey.
So, not switching, but I would love to be a teacher because teaching is something which comes naturally because my mother was also a principal maybe. But I always like going to law schools and share my experiences. So someday I would like to pursue that.
Sure. Nitin, one competency according to you which
Yeah, so I think a GC needs to be absolutely very brave, straight and frank. Whenever they are discussing whether with the leadership team or with their colleagues, I think that is one quality which I think is absolutely essential. You need to be upfront, brave to say your mind. Of course, be polite, civil, empathetic, have good conversational skills, be listening. But that is something which I think is very, very important. Because if you don't say your mind, it will not
create a
yeah.
Thank you all of you. Thank you for being a sport and hope all of you enjoyed the session. Thank you so much. Thank you.